Visium Technologies trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol VISM and is a cybersecurity solutions provider that uses graph database technology to deliver an analytics-driven, risk-based approach to cybersecurity that provides context to data so that users can make intelligent decisions in real time. Built for the U.S. Army Cyber Command by MITRE Corporation, CyGraph, and then further developed by Visium, their world-class TruContextTM technology provides visualization, advanced cyber monitoring intelligence, data modeling, analytics, and automation to help reduce risk, simplify cybersecurity, and deliver better security outcomes. Please welcome its CEO, Mark Luckey. Welcome, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're excited to hear your presentation, so take it away.
All right, sure enough, we'll do. So, as Anna was saying, we're a cybersecurity company. We use graph analytics. We have a highly powerful technology that we've licensed from MITRE Corporation. If you're not familiar with MITRE, I can tell you about them in a moment. Let's flip through here to the safe harbor real quick. So I'm going to put this up here. Some of the statements we make could be forward-looking, and you're cautioned to not rely too strongly on them. And you can read the statement for yourself. But in any event, just to caution you a little bit there, I'm going to walk you through a bunch of stuff about the technology and then a little bit more about kind of our current sales opportunities and what we're doing. So Anna kind of covered the background. The technology came out of MITRE Corporation. If you're not familiar with MITRE, they run the federally funded research and development centers for the U.S. government. Their focus is on national security and, in particular, technology and cybersecurity. The technology that we license is called CyGraph. It's currently used by U.S. Army Cyber Command throughout the cyber command centers around the country. We have taken that technology that we have the exclusive license rights to commercialize it. And we've enhanced it substantially with a lot of automation, with enhanced user interface and improved graphics, and we've made it a cloud native platform. And much of the improvements we've made are covered by provisional patents that we've filed. So we have a truly unique technology that, while there are other competitors out there in the graph analytics space, I don't think there's another tool out there that can do quite the same things we do with respect to visualization and advanced cyber monitoring, data modeling, and analytics. So it's a very, very powerful tool that we have. And just a little bit more about MITRE. They've been around a very long time. They were started back, I want to say, in the 50s, and they're a nonprofit. And again, their sole customer that they work for is the federal government, and they're funded by Congress. So to give you an idea of what our technology does, we are a tool that enhances and makes the analytics job of the typical security analyst easier. Analysts today are overwhelmed with the amount of data that they have to analyze and keep up with, and it's more information coming in than they can possibly manage. So notwithstanding the other cyber tools they may have and may be using, it's still a problem, and they're overwhelmed with it. And so they have this job where they have to try to keep up and understand and make sense of a lot of code and look at different dashboards and graphs and bar charts to understand and really troubleshoot problems that might be happening on their network. We're able to take that same data, any data, by the way, combine it, and our algorithms analyze it, and we're able to take it and create a visualization of that data that makes it easily understandable. It's intuitive for the analyst to look at and understand and use. So it's a tremendous time saver, for one thing. It makes the security posture and the resilience of the enterprise that much better because they're on top of things. They can respond in real time. It can literally take massive amounts of information, virtually unlimited scalability, and analyze it and create these pictures. So we take the massive amounts of data that's very complex and time-consuming and difficult to understand, and we make it understandable. And that allows for even junior analysts who may not be that experienced to be able to use this tool and understand it and be able to do their jobs much more effectively and efficiently. So it does a lot of the legwork, the conditioning of the data, et cetera, is done in an automated way where without this tool, you'd find people having to try to do it in a very laborious, time-intensive, and manual way. So again, this is what is TruContext. It's an analytics tool that helps organizations keep up with the challenge of defending their networks against cyber attacks. And it helps them to understand information flowing through their networks in real time so they can be much more responsive. And that's really the value proposition of the tool. And just to give you another couple of quick examples here, and last year in 2022, IBM put out a report and why it's so important to have this real-time analytics capability that TruContext delivers. There are two key data points that were in this report that IBM put out. One is that from the time a breach or security event occurs on the network to the time the bad actor is able to actually do harm to the network environment, either exfiltrate data, do some other form of damage to the network, is on average, it's less than 90 minutes, which is a fairly short time frame. If you're not able to respond quickly to a breach, then you're running the risk of having damage done. The other key finding of this report that IBM published was really kind of mind-blowing in that on average, from the time a breach occurs on to a network environment and an enterprise level customer to the time it's actually identified is between 8 and 10 months. So you can see there's this huge problem out there in the industry throughout the cybersecurity world, where breaches happen and companies go along their way. They're not even aware the breach occurred, and that through that entire time they're exposed and damage can be done. The best example of this that happened, I think, back in 2019 was the SolarWinds breach, where that breach occurred in April of that year, and it was found literally by accident in December, so fully 8 months later, and it affected thousands of networks worldwide. So that's a pretty good real-life example of what IBM's findings were. And just recently, in the last month, T-Mobile was breached. And they announced that I think it was 37 million records were exposed. Well, T-Mobile, by the way, they've been breached 8 times since 2017. So I don't know what they're doing for cybersecurity, but whatever it is, it's not working very well. But in any event, they spend a lot of money on cybersecurity, and notwithstanding the resources and money that they spend, they still have these exposures or weaknesses in their cyber posture and in their security posture. This technology, I'll talk to you a little bit more why our technology solves that problem. But one of the things is it has this unique ability to combine and overlay massive data and look at it as it's streaming in real time, and can literally shows you everything happening on your network. So if you're looking at it in real time and it's a picture that's easily understandable, then the analyst can identify an issue very, very quickly, understand how to prioritize problems as they occur, and then remediate and solve and fix those issues before they become a real problem. And that's really the value of the tool. And I think companies like T-Mobile, if they're not looking at solutions like ours, they should be, because even though their breach was found within a couple days, which is pretty quick, it was still not enough time to prevent the loss of all this information that was exposed. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about what TruContext can do that's beyond just cybersecurity. Some of the enhancements that Visium made to the tool, to this that we call TruContext now, allows the technology to ingest or analyze data from any data source. So not just network-centric data, which would be like packet capture data, endpoint data, firewall data. It could be Splunk data, could be any sort of data. It could take data from other sources and do the same sort of analytics. So it's truly a big data analytics platform that has multiple use cases for which it can add value and it has a lot of use. So, and some of those use cases would be anti-fraud or IT, OT, critical infrastructure sort of analytics, which, for example, the energy grid is a good example of that, where this technology can look at the grid, understand all the connections between the assets on the grid, the substations, and how power is being used and routed, and if there's an issue or an outage in a particular spot on the grid, that information can be ingested in real time, and you can do sort of operational analytics on that information. It can be used for supply chain, for law enforcement, which is currently being used for that type of stuff, and also for compliance type issues where regulatory requirements are constantly being enhanced. And so these compliance issues come into play. The tool can be used for those types of things as well. So it's not just a cybersecurity tool, even though that's our primary focus and what it was intentionally or initially developed for. So in any event, so one more quick slide on an example of what we can do with a tool that's beyond just cybersecurity would be our partnership with a company called IREX. IREX does artificial intelligence-based video surveillance. So it's really slick technology. In fact, I think they're best in class. And what it can do is connect thousands of cameras, let's say if you're in a large city, and it can stream that video information and identify things on the video that trigger alerts. Somebody falls down, they leave a package on a train platform, someone pulls a gun. You know, those things are the AI capability of the technology alerts and finds those things and sends alerts for public safety or law enforcement right when it happens. Our technology adds to that capability by adding, again, this idea of context and allowing it to overlay the context of the underlying metadata information related to the video, and it kind of enhances the results that are provided to the law enforcement agency or the public safety agencies. So it's a great tool, and it's just another example of how the tool can be used, our TruContext can be used beyond just the cyber world. So we have a really robust and growing sales pipeline, and it's taken us a long time to get here, but we're on the cusp of doing some really big things. One of our focuses is in Africa. I'll talk about that in another slide or two. Also in South America, it's primarily the South American opportunities are with IREX and some of the video surveillance capabilities that are in demand down there. In the federal government, both in the DoD and the intelligence agencies, as well as in the civilian agencies, NIH and Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, various agencies, Treasury Department are looking at, and we have opportunities in those agencies as well. Managed security service providers is another opportunity for us, where these companies are providing data center operations and network security for customers, and this tool is really helpful for them for enhancing, and it's a unique sort of a differentiator for them in their product offerings. Also in the fintech space and the financial institutions, it's used for cyber, but it's also used for anti-fraud and money laundering and a variety of other use cases as well. Also in telecom, as well as in education. Education is looking at it from a cyber standpoint, but again, with the IREX partnership, the physical security aspect of it as well, where they're using cameras on campuses, for example, for security and that type of thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about why we focus on Africa. Recently, we announced that we had formed this board of 5 pretty distinguished people, and we called it our African Business Development Advisory Board. These are former diplomats, ambassadors. In one case, we have a former prime minister of an African nation, all working with us. We actually started off in Africa more than a year ago, or about a year ago, and we've created relationships and contacts there. We were sort of ahead of the curve because we went there because we had an opportunity and sort of stayed, and we developed relationships there, I guess is the best way to put it. So through this African Advisory Board, they've opened many opportunities up to us in many, many different countries. And Africa is a really hot market right now. There's amazing transformation going on there for their digital transformation and business transformation. And that, of course, includes the need for cybersecurity. So, in fact, it was just announced today that the European Commission for International Partnerships announced that they were going to invest 150 billion euros in Africa between now and 2027. And that's for a variety of things, not just technology and cyber, but that's a very big number in the next couple, 3-4 years. And then also back in December, there was the U.S.-Africa Summit that took place in D.C. President Biden announced that over $15 billion in new deals had just been consummated, and he committed another $55 billion investment in Africa over the next 3 years. And I want to say it was 150 million of that number was devoted to digital transformation. So there's a lot of money pouring in there. There's a big push by the various governments and agencies around the world, the World Bank, the IMF, the U.S. Trade Development Agency. Lots of different agencies and organizations are investing heavily in Africa right now, to kind of bring them up to, in fact, to kind of end up surpassing most of the technology that's being used in the more developed parts of the world, because they're just going to leapfrog us. But for digitizing their economies, their governments, and of course, along with that is this tremendous need for cybersecurity. It's spurring a lot of technology and investment over there right now, and so we sort of got lucky in that we've got these partnerships and this advisory board that's very well connected at the highest levels of government in many countries throughout Africa that are helping us sort of pave the way to sales there. And so great opportunities there for cyber as well as some other things. Corruption is a big issue there, crime in general, security in general, and also fraud and those types of things. So our tool is really very, very valuable for those things. Here's just a quick page that tells you who these guys are. So Dr. Herndon, a career, a lifetime of work as a diplomat in Africa. Dr. Zerbo is the former Prime Minister of Burkina Faso. He was also the Executive Secretary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. An amazing individual, highly, just a really tremendous guy. But I can say that about all these guys. Ambassador Spiro Garbra is another tremendous guy. He has relationships in most of the countries in Africa. He was the former Minister of Trade and Industry in Ghana. Ambassador Huggins is the former U.S. ambassador to, Botswana, but he has relationships throughout South Africa in particular, and all the various countries there. And then Mr. Admasu is also a technology expert, has his own business, but he has strong relationships in throughout Africa, and I think particularly in Ethiopia and also in the Middle East. So because of this massive investment that's pouring into Africa, we're seeing major growth. There's a wide-scale economic and social transformation happening in Africa right now. It really can't be overstated. They're talking about the revenue growth there and the investment growth there growing 8 times its current levels to over $30 billion by 2025. And I think at the pace things are going, that could probably be exceeded. And they're having still, you're seeing there, you're having issues there. I think this next slide might speak to that. So they just had, and this is the African Union, in just in the last 2 weeks, they had a cyber attack. It was a ransomware situation. They found a bunch of problems, and basically they ended up crashing the whole African Union banking system there. So those are the kinds of issues that they're seeing there. It's ripe for these types of cyber attacks, because the transformation is happening and the security that goes along with it is not keeping pace. And so we hope to be part of that solution as we move forward here. Another slide, you can see that the transformations, they have a long way to go. So if you read this slide, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but only 10% of the transactions in Africa right now are digital. That number is very, very low compared to the rest of the world. You're going to see that dramatically increase as they transform the way their economies and everything works. And there's just a massive amount of growth going on there. So, and we're very well positioned as a company to be in the middle of a lot of that. And we're one of a handful of U.S. companies that are sort of on the leading edge of much of this. So this also shows, I will tell you this, we're also focused primarily on what I'll call the Francophone countries, which are the French-speaking countries in Africa, mostly located in West Africa. And we have some good, strong partnerships there that are going to help us make sales there. So as well as in other parts of Africa. So that's really, we have a lot of U.S.-based opportunities in the federal government and healthcare, financial institutions, education as well. But we also have a very exciting focus on what's happening in Africa right now. And then I wanted to finish up a little bit here, just talking about our current cap table. We went through a reverse split last August or September, I can't recall. So we have a very tight outstanding share count right now. It's just over 5 million shares. 2.6 million shares of that is in the float. So it's a fairly tight float. And this sort of gives you the breakdown of what our current shares are. That's as of the end of February, actually, is what those numbers are as of. And just to give you another idea, so our market cap today, given where the share price is trading, is, it's close to $1 million. And we believe that there's a lot of upside here, that with the opportunities that we're on the cusp of closing, and the things we've done to get to this point, that our share price has a pretty good ways to go, probably up from here. And so we think this is a very exciting time for the company with a lot of really tremendous opportunities coming up to us over the next, I'll call it next 60 to 90 days, probably. And so in any event, that's really the pitch. That's really my presentation to you of what's going on. I was going to throw this back to Anna now, see if there's any Q&A that we want to try to do.
Great job, Mark. It's such an important time for this technology. Don't we all know? Okay, so let's talk about your target customers. Who are they?
Well, for the most part, this is an enterprise level solution. And so I would say any entity that has an enterprise network, could be a government entity, it could be the U.S. or state or local or even federal agencies, healthcare, hospitals, large organizations that have a lot of data that are trying to manage and understand, and they have big cybersecurity needs. So obviously that includes the financial sector, the banks, et cetera. Energy and what I'll call infrastructure is another big one, because again, it's about managing a lot of connected points and data and understanding how operationally things are working. So pretty much any enterprise level enterprise is going to be a candidate to be a customer of ours. Virtually any large entity, because we're sort of agnostic with respect to industry. It doesn't really matter, right? So it could be any industry, but they're gonna have cybersecurity concerns, and that's where our tool can bring a lot of value.
Wonderful. Talk about your team. You mentioned some of it, but how many people specifically work for Visium?
Well, it varies. We have at any given time probably 4 to 5 people that are working in product development. We have another 2 or 3 of us that work in administration. That includes myself. And we have another 5 to 8 consultants that work in sales. And so we have a small but very aggressive and capable sales forces out there, really pursuing strong opportunities. And so when you add it all up, it's probably close to 15 people at any given time. I would say other than the first probably 4 or 5 of us, the rest are 1099 employees. We use them sort of on an as-needed basis, particularly the developers, and that's a way of kind of keeping our costs down and still being able to get the work done that we need to get done.
Well, cybersecurity seems to be on the tip of everyone's tongue these days. So what's the size of the market that you compete in?
Well, so to give you an idea, I believe in fiscal 23, calendar 23, the cybersecurity market is expected to be, I want to say, close to $70 billion annually. And of course, that number is still growing at probably at a CAGR of more than 10% a year. So we're in a good space. The analytics space is a good space. The cyber space is a good space, and so it's a good place to be, and especially in the markets as they are today.
And what are the expected gross margins on sales?
Well, if this is a software sale, we have to pay some royalties to MITRE, and we have some other sort of cost of sales. But the margins are going to be when it's all said and done, between 70 and 80 points. So it's very high margin revenue, which is great.
Wonderful. Well, do you have any closing remarks for our audience today?
No, I just appreciate the time and the opportunity to do this. I love hearing from investors and potential interested parties. I think my phone number is on the opening screen. And of course, you can always go to our website. That's just Visium, VISIUM Technologies, TECHNOLOGIES.com. And you can always reach us that way as well. But fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you, and please come back in the future with some updates.
Awesome. We'll do. As soon as these deals break, I'll tell you I'll be back.
Okay, great. We look forward to it. And stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back with our next presenter.